Welcome to Soft Bites Podcast. Your life, your dentistry. We talk about ways to have more fun and meaning in one of the coolest and most rewarding professions in medicine. Conversations on how to bring awareness, create a healthy workplace, and provide emotional insights to make dentistry a fulfilling activity while making space for one's wonder, creativity, and freedom. Here are your hosts, Manuela and George Andre.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Soft Bites podcast. Hello, Andre. How are you?
Hi, Manuela. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Happy to be here with you. We been experiencing some sounds complaints from our listeners. We apologize about that.
Especially from my part, I apologize for that because I am in the living room. So, and I use the mic is good, but I think that I need to get myself closer to the mic, which I try to do. I have some supports here, some arms. So I think that this time.
So we hope that today
better.
is better. I will let you know when I see that you are to the back. I will remind you to go to the front.
That's also good because my back has been hurting. So if I have some
posture,
not very good positions, just let me know.
Posture, yeah.
But this is the first podcast. Is this the first podcast since the course, since the last course?
Yes. We've been together in Sagres for the third edition of the course. It was really nice. We had such a good time, and it's always such a magical environment.
Yes.
And we have a new edition already scheduled for October. So the 5th, 6th, and 7th of October for the ones that are listening and want to join us. And today's podcast is about actually you were the one suggesting this theme that we're going to talk about, but immediately when you suggested, I think it came to mind something that you always say in the course to the ones to the participants. So today we're going to talk about things you should know if you are thinking about opening a practice, because I think this is really important for the ones that are thinking about opening a practice. There are certain things that you should be aware of, and we're going to talk about that. But you always say during the course that when a colleague tells you that they are going to open a practice, a dental clinic, or not, it doesn't need to be from scratch. They can just take over someone else's practice. But when someone takes that step, because it's a big step nowadays, always, but I think that nowadays with all the financial part and also the rhythm of society that we live in, but you always say that when someone tells you that you are so happy, that you are always very happy to hear when someone says, I'm going to open a practice. And for me, the first time that I heard you say that, it was surprising because it's actually, you hear the opposite from colleagues. You usually hear, are you sure? And do to whatever it is. But I think that we always have, and I might be mistaken, but I think that we always have first a fear-based reaction to that, to when someone tells us that they are going to take that step. So I want to ask you, because I know why you say that, but I want to hear you say it. Why do you have such a positive reaction when someone says to you that they're going to open a practice, a dental clinic, that they are going to be owners of a dental clinic? Why are you always so supportive and always so positive and happy about that?
Well, it's kind of interesting, I think that actually I never really thought about exactly why. I mean, it's not like a rational reaction, let's say it. But if you think about it, if I think about it, let's say, I think that it makes me happy because I believe it's an opportunity for the personal creativity of each colleague, and that is something that is we don't always have that that opportunity. Um, I always believe, and looking back at the people that have opened a practice, I think the percentage, the reality that I know, I'm talking about the Portuguese reality, okay, which is where things are even more difficult than anything else, than any other country that I believe, or at least compared to Europe. So even in Portugal, I think that most of the colleagues that open a practice, most of them, I think vast majority are not regretful. I mean, they within a few years, I think they think that they made a good decision. Now, I think that it's not for everyone, of course, it's not for everyone, but if that idea keeps popping up in your head, that is because you are the person. You are one of those persons that it's actually a practice is for you. I mean, if you think it about once in a while and you just dismiss it or you are afraid of it, but if you feel like it's challenging, if you find yourself thinking about the challenges, if you find yourself thinking about solutions for challenges, and if if you find yourself maybe listening to the podcast and say, well, I would probably have be doing this differently. I would hire these kinds of persons. This is the way I would set a dental practice. This is the way that I would set a waiting room. This would be my philosophy. I mean, if you imagine that, even if it's only like for a game or just for having fun, I think you are one of the persons that is someone that should open a practice. That's what I feel. Because at the end of the day, I think that your profession should be an expression of your creativity, and you should be having fun with it. So if you have fun in your head thinking about what an ideal dental practice should be, then I think you should consider that. I think this is as simple as that. Of course, there's a lot of all other financial limitations and possibilities, of course, but just to know if you are if you are not sure if you are the kind of person that should open a practice or not, because some people say, oh, I would never open a practice. Some others say, I definitely believe that I should open a practice. And some of them, they say, well, sometimes I think about that. So my biggest advice would be, if you find yourself thinking about creating ways of delivering dentistry in your own personal way, I think that you should consider that. That's what I think, and this is why I feel thrilled when someone tells me that, because I feel it's a way that they are expressing. They are not afraid of expressing their creativity through a business, which I think is something really important, and it's a very good way of fulfilling and expressing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's an opportunity for you to create your own environment, right? And for you to be able to express yourself, like you said it.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's a great opportunity. There's a lot of other things that you have to consider, of course. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just not like you want to open a practice and just because you have fun with the ideas, you should be. I mean, you have to calculate the numbers, and you have to see if you think about opening it yourself or with some associates. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that you have to consider, more practical stuff.
Yeah, but so let's get for the initial part, like you were saying. So I think that the first thing that you should really be aware when you think about opening a practice is the reason why you are doing it, because I think that's very important, and that will give you some guidance also for several practical aspects. Because if you don't have this clear reason, then you will never have a clear vision for what you will want. What?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because that's one of the most recurrent themes when you have like the discussions that we have in the course. And one of the good things about the course is that we have a lot of, I mean, sometimes out of the lecture interactions, and we usually start talking about why they should open a practice or not. And I think that's something when we ask this question to dentists, some of them, they get a little bit surprised and they don't know exactly how to answer that. So some of them believe that they should open a practice, but when we ask them, so why is that? And we give them a couple of examples, and they get a little bit confused. Like, for example, okay, so you want to open a practice because you want to have control over your schedule, or you want to open a practice because you want to work within those standards that you believe that are the best. And this is a very common reason. I hear this a lot. They say, well, I work in places where I cannot do the dentistry that I want to do. And this is one of the reasons that I want to open a practice. Another can be for financial reasons. Or sometimes I tell them, look, your dental practice can be your investment for your retirement if you sell it afterwards, isn't it? So it's
it can be also because there was a participant last course that told us that it was because she worked with multidisciplinary teams. And she has some communication issues in some of the clinics that she works.
Yes,
so she decided to open her own practice because doing multidisciplinary dentistry is not easy.
Yes.
And she wanted to be able to control that, and by having her own practice, that's easier to control. So one of the aspects
that is also very common.
Yeah.
It's also a very common thing that we hear. Yeah.
So
and
one
for
of the
myself,
things. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say this, and then you can continue. One of the things that you need to know before opening a practice is that you need to work on your communication skills. So this is very important.
Well, that's whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do in this life, you have to work on that. Because at the end of the day, you are as good as you are able to communicate. Okay? Unless that you want to go only just to the Himalayas and meditate on the top of the hill.
Yeah, alone.
To work on that. Yeah, but let me think of some other reasons why people tell us they would like to open a practice. Well, for financial
your reason,
reasons,
for example, your reason. Why was your reason?
Yeah, I was about to tell you that. I mean, my reason, I don't think it's a very. It's basically the same thing as when someone tells you that they want to practice better dentistry, whether it is interdisciplinary communication or they just want to have better materials. They want to have appropriate time for the appointments. They want to do the patient workflow or the systems or the philosophy or the culture of the practice that they want. And my reason is, I think, within that, which is basically I wanted to have control over the time of the appointments, because I wanted to do international publications. That is the reason why I opened my practice. I just wanted to have it like a small playground where I could have fun and photograph and record cases to be able to publish them internationally. And it was that was the reason. And looking back, and I talk about this, I think that I've talked about this in the podcast, and I talk extensively about this in the course. I mean, of course that you have to have the dream, and you have to have the drive, and you have to know exactly why is it that you are doing that. And looking back, I had no idea that was the reason. It was not something that I would write down or that I would think about it. I was just like in let's say in autopilot. This is like an expression of my ego, and I want to do this. But one of the things that you have to be careful is that the practice, opening a practice, has financial consequences that can be serious, especially if you hire people, or if you are working with, if you are using money that is not exactly from you, it's not your money, or even if it is your money, you have to be very careful with that, because a business is something that you have to take it with a very serious approach in terms of finances, especially.
It will
So,
give you a lot of
yes,
pressure, right? So you have to be prepared for that pressure.
yes,
So
yes, yeah, exactly. So, like in my case, for example, I opened a practice and I started to do a master degree at the same time. So the financial pressure over myself was really big, which is something that, looking back, I would probably not do it in that way. I would probably delay a few years more before doing my master, because I wanted to have more financial stability to be able to do the master, because I was spending a lot of money every year, and those are the things that you have to be careful. I think that something that makes sense would be, for example, let's say, open a practice, and if you are working in some other places, do a smooth transition. I mean, don't just go all in your practice. Have it like just go there like 1 day a week or 2 days a week, of course, and things will grow up. But just make sure that you have like a backup plan, and the finances are in order. Keep your expenses low in the beginning. Maybe you can have like a part-time assistant that stays there like only half the time, and you go there like twice a week. That would be my advice. Just do the transition smoothly. And I did that. In my case, I did that transition smoothly. I hired an assistant part-time. I was working 3 days a week in the practice that I was before, and then I did a smooth transition to my practice. I started like 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, and things just took off. But it was looking back, one of the mistakes that I did was that I placed a lot of financial pressure over myself, because I was doing a master's degree in London for 4 years. It was part-time, but the expenses were very high, and it was. And also emotionally, it was difficult for me at that time, because I had 2 big issues in my hands. One of them was studying for the master, which I enjoyed, because I wanted to be good. I wanted to know the literature. I wanted to give courses. I wanted to eventually follow some academic position, which now I know that I don't. But at the time, it was something that I would eventually consider. And at the same time, I wanted to grow my practice. So I think it was too much for me at the time that I could handle. I think I could have taken it easier on myself, and maybe more balanced way. Maybe delay the master degree for 1 or 2 years. That I think that eventually that would be better, or just do better calculations. just do the numbers, right? And at that time, I had no idea of what management or marketing or whatever that was. It was only in London a few years later that I came to realize that. So one thing that the advice would be, first of all, if it makes you enthusiastic thinking about opening a practice, just think about that. Think about the possibilities. Will you just borrow money? Will you associate yourself with someone? Would you take over a practice? Just start to think about that, because you might be a good person. You might have a lot of fun by opening a practice. That's number one. And number two, just make sure you do the math, and so that the transition is smooth, and that you know what you are doing. And number three, just don't be afraid of what everybody is telling you, especially in Portugal, that you should not open a practice, or things are bad. But the alternative is what? If you are not happy in the places that you are, if you think that things should be improved, or if you really don't want to, you can't keep on like that for a few years, then yes, opening a practice is you'll be able to do your own playground, right? So even though there's an excess number of dentists, I think there is still space, even in a country like Portugal. I think there is still space for people who want to do good dentistry and are passionate about it, and they want to have like a very good patient service and patient experience. I think there is space for that. But of course, you have to do the calculations. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing, of course. Yeah.
Do you think that nowadays there is more awareness on, for example, on this that we just said, that you need to be prepared, because there will be a lot of pressure right? There will be a lot of pressure. You have to deal with financial issues. You have to be prepared also for management, to do to deal with the finances, to
Yes.
communication, like we were saying, going to manage a team, which is not easy. Also, do you think that nowadays there is more awareness for all of this? Because in our generation, it was almost normal to open a practice, like, and the dentist did everything. It was like, it was normal, and you managed everything. Do you think that nowadays there starts to be more awareness that you need also to, okay, you're going to open a business, you're going to open a dental clinic, but you also have to invest in other skills. So management, how do I do that? Communication, how do I do that? Do you think that nowadays there starts to be more awareness of this, and that actually dentists take this in consideration? So when we are talking about things you need to know before you opening a practice, do you think that when a dentist does this exercise, okay, what do I need to know before opening a practice, they already think about the skills that they need to develop themselves in order to be able to deal with everything that will come with the clinic? Just like you said, you open it and you didn't know anything about those things, right? And you had to learn, and it costs you a lot, probably, of yourself, and you grow a lot with it, and it's a great teaching. But nowadays we know that you can learn certain things, and of course you don't need to wait until you learn all of this, because you never be prepared. And so it's just like you said, if you feel there's something that you want to do, and it's something that drives you, and you have the reason and the motivation, you should do it. Don't wait until you're ready, because we are never ready. But you should also invest in developing certain skills, because it will make your life easier, and it will be less suffering compared to what you had, for example. Do you think when you have young dentists coming to you and asking, because we already had people in our course because of that reason, okay, I'm thinking about opening a practice, or I just opened a practice, or I just bought a practice, and I feel that this course will help me with that. So I think there's more awareness. What is your feeling about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. What I see comparing to that time, I mean, I opened my practice in 2005. Okay, so it's a big. It's a lot of. It's 2 decades. In 2 decades, everything changes, right?
World. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a different world. There was no social media at that time. It really is very, very different. So the question is, do I believe that people are aware of the skills that they need? Mm-hmm. I think they are much more aware now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they are much more aware. I think that that they understand that you need to have communication skills, management skills, marketing skills, sales skills, leadership skills. They also understand that the profession is can be quite a burden, an emotional burden, if they don't deal with it. So, for example, for me, looking back, it even cost me a relationship that I had at the time, because I was in a relationship at that time, and because I was opening the practice and I was also doing the master degree, and there was so much priority over myself regarding some like the relationship that I had at the moment, that it even cost me a relationship. So yes, I really think that you should, when you consider opening a practice, you should get yourself ready for that. Now the question is, because if you get yourself ready, I mean, if you go and do some management courses, if you go and do some leadership courses, if you go and do some communication and sales courses, will that prevent you from failure? And it will. It will. I think you will be at least more aware of when the shit hits the fan. It will not prevent the shit hitting the fan, I think. But because also I think that when you deal with a lot of issues and pressure, and when the things go wrong, I think it is an amazing way of learning. It is an amazing way of evolving. So doing mistakes and going through the mistakes, at the end of the day, it is one of the best ways to evolve. Now, if I have had the information and the course at the time, would it make a difference? I think I was too egocentric at the time to listen to other people. Because 20 years ago there was nothing. It really, there were a few books. I learned my dental techniques mainly through books. I started to periodontal surgery in books. Can you imagine? There was not even online courses and stuff like that. So much less management and stuff like that. There were some books of some strange guys that would talk about that. It was completely different. And this is why it's difficult for me to place myself on the feet of people that have 20 years now, that are out of the college now. But I think they are much more aware of that. And I think they are much more humble in the sense that they need to have some other skills. And I think that social media played a big role in that, because the interconnectivity and the sharing of information and experience has just skyrocketed. So, and I think that the social media culture and the way that you learn by hearing other points of view, by being exposed to much more issues within dentistry besides the technical part, I think that people are much more open to that. So, yes, I think you need to do that. I think that you need to do a course on management and leadership and communication, I think, or read about that and be prepared for that. Yes, but things will still go wrong. And of course that you need to keep learning. But I think it would be a huge advantage, because at least when things start to happen, I think that you'll not panic as much, and you understand, well, okay, this is happening. If I don't know how to deal with it, at least I know where I can find all the people that I should talk to that have already had this issue that can eventually overcome that. But let me give you an example for you to understand the complexity of what this means. In terms, for example, of if you are 20s, and you open a practice, it's very difficult that you at 20s develop the leadership skills to deal with difficult team members, for example. It's not easy. It's not easy for you to develop the emotional stability and awareness and the consciousness to be able to lead a team. Looking back at 20 years from now, I was a complete kid. The way that I lead today and the way that I deal with people or difficult people or difficult situations or just normal situations that happen is completely different now, because I think that I'm much more mature now. I'm much more confident. And I think that, for example, the confident part, that to be confident while you are talking to other people, explaining them what is the goal of the practice, when you are 20, at the end of this is as simple as this. I have already developed a reputation, let's say, or a small success that people listen to me, right? So it's completely different. This is why the way that when you give advice to someone, you always have to be aware of where they are. So when I say that they should get the course and information, I'm not saying that things will be easy, because at the end of the day, you'll have to prove yourself. And your word is just your word, and your word before you achieved nothing is completely different than your word after you have achieved something. I was listening to a very interesting podcast from a guy called Derek Sievers this last week, and he said, "Well, I have a lot of people that ask me advice," and he says, "Well, it's very different because it's like," and he gave this very interesting example, which is, okay, let's imagine that the goal is to go to a certain city in, let's say, in Brazil. You want to go to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And people ask you advice. Well, how should I get there? Well, it depends on where you are. If you are in China, that's one thing. If you are in Portugal, it's another thing. If you are in the São Paulo, it's completely different. So it depends on where you are and how you want to do this journey. So actually, the complexity of advice is really it's really infinite, And another thing, this is why I agree when people say, well, advice is overrated. It's not that it is overrated. It's that it has to be placed into context, because at the end of the day, you have to do your own journey. But the more information you have throughout the journey, I think the more productive it will be. And it will prevent you a lot of suffering, for sure. If I had someone that guided me when I was, which I had at that time, a few years later, I had some guidance. But if I had someone to guide me before I opened the practice, if it was not so empiric the way that I did that, I mean, I had no clue what I was doing. I started to write some manual, but I had one dental nurse. My practice was basically, when I opened the practice, when I set the architecture and the interior design, it was basically for some visual attractiveness. I even never thought about if it is functional or not, if it made sense functionally for the patient. I just want to make them to have like a good experience. And 20 years later, I really understand that there needs to be a lot of balance between functionality, design, and something very important, which is the comfort of the people that work in the practice. I hope I'm not extending myself too much, but let me tell you a story. Over the last 2 months, I have had 2 people that are opening a practice that eventually came to me about that. One of them is a very good girl. She's a very good friend of me. She's a girl. She's a girl, and she's a very good friend. And she and her boyfriend, they were they just showed me what they were doing, and I look at the
plan,
the sketch, the plan, the sketch, and I was like, and it's very funny because I started to laugh, and I was like, I mean, there are so many things that when you don't own a practice that you miss. For example, small things. Number one, you don't want the patients to see you when you arrive at the practice. You shouldn't. And well, why is that? I mean, because you may eventually arrive late. That's one thing. But even if you always arrive on time, you don't want them to see you. You don't want to expose yourself too much, And I don't know, for some people, for the older people, more experienced, this makes complete sense. But for younger people, you may not feel it's very important. So make sure that when you enter your practice, you have like a back door, or if you go into the main entrance, you can eventually not be seen in the waiting room. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing, you need to have a lounge for the staff. You need to have a lounge for the staff. Even if you are only thinking about having like 1 chair or 2 chairs, trust me, you need to have a space where you can, between patients, just go to Instagram, just grab a coffee, just talk to people, make some jokes, ask people how they are doing, just relax, just stretch. For example, I am doing the final construction in my practice, and I want to have a part in the lounge where I can do some pull-ups, for example, just within appointment, within the patients. I want to have a place where people can sit. They have access to the schedule software. They can see eventually with cameras what's going on. They can have a coffee. They can just chill out. They can have fun. They can laugh. They can make jokes. And this is so important. This is really important. This is something that people don't think about. So that would be advice number 2. I'm talking from a logistical point of view. Then there are some other stuff, like, for example, should you have a studio? Yes, for photography, I think it's very important that you have a studio for photography. Then all the legal requirements. But those 2 things, like, just make sure you have an entrance in the practice where you have some privacy. And then make sure that you have a common area like a lounge. Make sure you have that, because as time goes by, those moments are very important in terms of the overall health of the team. Okay, then there's a lot of other stuff like legal requirements and stuff like that, and the studio is also important. So yes, you should have a lot of information regarding how you should open a practice, both management, leadership, the space, how to lay out the space. That is also very important.
But that's very
and team
interesting
management.
what you just said. So to go to someone that already has the experience and really to show everything and to say, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? Because one thing is the idea that we have in our minds and even on paper, right? That everything seems so beautiful. And the other thing is the practical, if it's practical or not, if it's really something that it's going to be comfortable for the people working there, if it's going to create a good workflow, and that only a person that already has experience can tell you that. Maybe an architect cannot tell you that because he doesn't experience a dental practice every day. So you should really go to someone that has the experience and ask as much as you can and take as much as you can. So in terms of is this something that not only looks good on paper, but it really makes sense on a daily basis. So that's
and it's interesting because both of these people and the other person that was also considering opening a practice. Actually, she took over a practice. She was one of the girls that was in the course. And we had a lot of conversations, and it was the same thing. So people, they don't value the lounge area. So you have this lounge area, there's sun here. Just make sure you have a place here where you can just chill out. Make sure you have that. And also some other things. Make sure that you can circulate between the treatment rooms without bothering anyone. Make sure you have some privacy. Those things are really, really, really important. Of course, that you also have to have minimum space for the dental chair, because sometimes people say, well. And for example, I'm going to compare my practice to most of the practices that I see. I see a lot of practices having huge spaces for each dental treatment room. I see like 12, 15 square meters. I have dental treatment rooms. I have 4. Some of them have 9 square meters. It's quite small, It's quite small. So I don't think you need a big dental treatment room. I think you maybe need one if you want to have if you want to feel space around you, if you want to document some cases, someone doing some videos, that's one thing. But I think that if you think that all your dental treatment rooms are very big, you'll be basically missing out the opportunity to add some extra dental treatment room and just make sure that it's more financially sustainable. You have to think about these things, because at the end of the day, yes, the technical part is very important, that you just want to go and do the job. Because for the patient, I don't think that they think it is very different to be. Everything needs to be clean. You need to have eventually a TV on the ceiling, but you don't need a large space. I mean, you are not going for a hotel, right? You have to have a good waiting room. That's very important. But I don't think you should waste too much time and space, too much money and too much space on big dental treatment rooms. So that's also, I think, a big mistake, because at the end of the day, things have to be sustainable. And yes, you go and you do the job, but make sure that you have a good lounge for to chill out. And that's a very common mistake that I see, at least from my part, because once you start to work, you will realize how important it is, those little moments that you spend with the team, just for connection, just for team building, whatever, just to chill out, to. I mean, you always told this. We always tell this. This is, you are not family, right? and you are not intimate friends, but I mean, you want to have fun with the people that
But you
you
want to
work
have a
with.
good environment. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and the environment needs to be light and funny, because the lighter and the funnier it is, the less drama there is. It should not be heavy, because if you don't have a place, if your nurses are only on the sterilization room, disinfection room, they have nowhere else to go. I mean, you are creating this cleavage between who you are and who the dental nurses are, and everybody stays in their own treatment room. So I really think it is so important to have like a common lounge, so that people can interact and have fun and have a good laugh throughout the day. Yeah.
Before I have here a couple of questions for you, but I want to go into something. But before of that, I found interesting that you said, when you talked about the size of the cabinet, and it's not directly related to that, but do you think that? And I heard you say start small and grow from that. And you even said maintain some of the practices that you work with, start small and then grow from that, because and you also said something interesting, that that you generally you don't know anyone that regrets having a practice. My question is, do you know colleagues that regretted to make it bigger? So the thing is, you start small. Yeah, that's it. So because I that's my experience also. Sometimes I speak to colleagues and they don't regret having a practice, but they regret they know exactly the moment where they should not have gone, and it's making the practice bigger. So because when you say start small, and of course it's good to have a growth, and it's a good sign, and you want to open another cabinet and you employ other colleagues. How do you know, and this is already a little bit apart from this is going further from opening a practice, but I think that this line,
it's important
to know, to really distinguish, okay, I'm good and this is working. But if it's working, there's always that pressure, especially if you have the space to grow bigger, right? And with bigger comes bigger responsibilities, and so sometimes that makes all the difference. How do you think that you can make that distinction? It's only financial awareness.
So no, I think it's and the point that you are touching is very interesting, because practices that have grown more than 4 or 5 dental chairs, that they start to get like really big. I do know people that could manage that, but most of the people that I know, I think they paid an emotional price, even that they sometimes they don't want to admit it. I see that most of those people, they are hostages, and this is something that I don't see being recognized by them, because they are hostages of the situation. I mean, of course, you are always an hostage, let's say, of your practice if you open one. There's also you also have you always have responsibility. But I think that especially when you let your practice grow, especially in the 90s and in the early years of the new millennium, I think there was not enough knowledge to deal with something which is the crucial point here, which is delegation. Because if you start a practice, and that's something that we can discuss regarding opening a practice. If you open a practice, you must have a very clear vision, and this is really important, of what you want to do in that practice with time. And this is something really key in the discussion that we are having today. When I opened my practice, I had no idea, it never even crossed my mind how many days I would be working in 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years, if I wanted to sell it or not. or which of the procedures did I want to do within the practice? Because basically, I did general dentistry, and then I wanted to do only complex aesthetic stuff, right? And that transition is very difficult for most of the people. And if you don't do it well, you will end up trying to please everybody and end up being frustrated with delegation, wanted to be perfect, okay? Wanted to make sure that everybody is as good as you are or has exactly the same time that you have. And then you start to try to please all the patients, and you don't learn to say no, because delegation within dentistry means having the ability to say no to some patients. And things are different now, of course, because patients understand that. But two different scenarios. You open a practice, and in your mind, it's very, very clear, very absolutely clear that you want to dedicate yourself to a specific area within dentistry. So even though you are doing general dentistry, the way that you communicate with patients, it is in the back of your mind that you will eventually stop doing the general stuff. And you talk about that with the patient. So you don't create expectations. You don't give yourself too much to the patient. You don't develop dependence. You don't let the patients develop dependence towards you. Okay? So that transition towards a time where other colleagues will populate the practice and do some other stuff, that transition will be smoother. It's never easy, but it will be smoother. Now, scenario number 2 is you just start to conquer. You start to seduce and attract every single patient. You start to develop like an emotional dependence of the patient to you. You start to seduce the patient, which I did a lot, And what happens is that then the patients start to go to your practice, not because of your system, but because of you. They are in love with you. Okay. So if you let them be in love with you, now you have to break relationships, right? And that is very difficult. And many people, they are not able to stop that. And that brings a lot of issues in the long term, because you will eventually burn out. Because you will be doing implants, and then you will be doing some endo, and then you will be doing some ortho. If you get into that area of you are trying to please everybody, trying to do everything, I think that you will have a lot of issues. And those are, in my opinion, when you try to do everything, when there is no system, when there is no delegation, then you start to get cynical. Why? Because you don't start to believe in anyone. You believe that everybody should work up to your standards. Why? Because you didn't teach them. You just expect that people behave in a certain way. You don't have a system. You don't have regular meetings, because basically you are only just ending fires, right? So you can't be happy with the decision that you make. It's impossible to be happy with that decision. So
and you will have a lot of difficulties if you want to end it. You will have a lot of difficulties.
And this is why I see many people that have worked for 20 years or 30 years that say, "Well, I think I grew too much. I'm burned out." They don't have the mental space to be curious about a new patient. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, it's just like, when you go to a doctor and there's heaviness in their face. They just want to get the procedure or the appointment over with,
Yes.
And I think that's the reason, because you were not aware of exactly what you wanted to do within 5, 10, or 15 years. If you want to be a general dentist, okay, you can be a general dentist. But if you want to do something else, just make sure that is in the back of your mind, because if you let the patients fall in love with you, you will never, other people will never be enough to replace you. Okay? I think that's a good catch. We should publish this one, right? If you let the patients fall in love with you, no other colleague will be up to that standard. So it's impossible to delegate if you do that. And I did that mistake for many years. I would seduce the patients. I would let them fall in love with me. I was the best, And now it's difficult because they don't like it when I delegate.
Every dentist in the beginning of their career do, even in an unconscious way, because in the beginning of your career, you are working with your full attention. Actually, you are very mindful when you start working. Even you listen in a mindful way. So even you don't know anything about mindfulness, but you work in a very natural way on that state, because you have to give your full attention to that person. And also in the beginning of your career, you have more time to do the procedures. So basically, you are working towards that relationship of connection, like you said, to for the person to fall in love with you, which is basically the person trusting you. Because if someone trusts you, then you have it for life. Then you have it for life, that patient.
Yes.
So
the problem is that
in the beginning, I think that's
how do you gain
very,
trust?
yeah.
But the problem is, how do you gain trust of the patient? For example, if you want to show that you are an interesting person, you can use that strategy. Just talk about some random stuff, talk about interesting stuff.
Sympathy, sympathy, yeah.
Be charismatic, be seductive. I'm not talking about intimate seduction. I'm just talking about. I mean, and it's very tempting to do that. It's very tempting to do that. And if you do that, no one will be up to that standard again. So if today, what would I've done different? I'm not saying that I would be non-interesting. What I'm saying is that small details within the conversation would need to be present. Like, okay, yes, I will do the control appointments. Eventually, in the future, we might have like a dental nurse that's going to do this. But just drop in the patient's head that
that you are not going to be the one always
forever.
Yeah.
Yes, and that we have a team. We work as a team. I'm not a rock star. Just small comments. Just make sure that you tell them that you are not a rock star. You work within a team. This is like a concept, right? So you can still be interesting, but just once in a while, just tell them, or okay, for now I'll keep seeing you, but eventually in the future there will be some dental hygienist or some guy doing the endo, some other guy doing the implant, some other guy doing the ortho. Just make sure that conversation is on the table. But I think that the simple fact that you open a practice with that future strategy in mind, that you will delegate, unconsciously you will watch out when you try to make the patient fall in love with you. Because I mean, it's like when you are in a relationship, the way that you talk to other person, I mean, if you feel there's some interest, you have to be careful that there's only so much that you can give from yourself. You don't want to show yourself that you are completely available, because it's not true. Why is that? Because eventually, if the other person falls in love with you, you are being irresponsible with that other person. Does this make sense to you? So this is exactly what I see that with a patient. If you want the patient to fall in love, you are being irresponsible with the patient because you are giving them your personality, like in an open way, and then you will remove it from them. Because then the patient will associate the experience with the dentist to be talking to Andre. Oh, it's such a nice guy. We had some interesting conversation. We talk about this and that. I mean, Luis is a much more shy guy. And they feel that difference, So I'm being irresponsible not only with Luis, I'm being responsible with the patient. So I'm just making a trap here. So you have to take that into consideration, because you will never find someone that is in your eyes as interesting as you. People are interesting in very different ways, but you think that you are the best because you are charismatic, and it's very easy to fall into that trap. So you are being irresponsible with the patients if you try to seduce them too much. That's what I think.
So this goes back to you have to be very aware of the reason why you are opening a practice.
Yes.
Because that reason will give you the vision, and you will base your actions and your behavior and your communication with patients and with your staff also based on that vision and what you want to do in the future. So that's why it's very important.
Unconsciously.
So,
even unconsciously.
The same way that you do a plan with an architect to draw the rooms and everything, make sure that you have the plan, your vision, that you really know the reason why you are opening a practice, because that will give you the real motivation. And I find it very interesting when you do this kind of exercise, not only to define your personal reasons, which of course are the first ones, but also to have this vision as of the project, right? What you want to achieve with that micro cosmos that you're going to create, right? So how can that influence the dentistry that you want for the world? So you have that opportunity to create really something. So you should do this exercise not only to discover the reason, your personal reason, and to create your vision for the future, make it 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but also of the practice as a company should have its own values,
Yes.
right? You should define the vision
The
for
culture,
this living community that you are going to create, and you will have that power. So that's very important.
which goes way, way
Yeah.
beyond yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
It will never be only a self-reflection of who you are
You will have a great
exclusively.
influence, but it's much bigger
Yes.
than you.
Yes,
Yeah.
because then it mutates, it grows, it integrates with the people that work there. Of course, you can have some control over that, but you'll never find the exact people that have the same level of communication or charisma or technical ability of you. You'll have someone that are better. You'll have someone that
You
are worse. You have different people.
and also something that you say in the course that I find it very interesting, that clinic owners have to learn to accept, is you make this question: how do you make people that work for you care as much for the clinic as you do, for the business as you do? And you make this question, and the
Yeah.
answer is that you cannot, because no one will
No,
care as much
that's
as you,
of
right? And you
course
have to
that
accept that.
that's the most common and narcissistic. That's
Yeah,
the most common narcissistic way of seeing a business. Oh, I want, because you get frustrated. I want the people to have the same passion as myself. That's not
so
possible.
that's another very important thing that you should know before you open a dental practice, is that
Yeah.
no one will love and care for that dental practice as you, because it will be your baby, your project, and that's it. No one else's.
And that is not bad. That's not a
Yeah.
bad thing, because at the end of the day, it's like you are creating something that, as interactions with other people and the culture, it will. And if it's impossible to do one thing well alone. That doesn't happen. And you have to get that idea out of your mind. It's impossible to do one thing alone. It's impossible that you are the rock star, right? Even today, I look at my dental nurses. One of them, she's like a designer, and she brought this whole nother level to the practice. The other one, she wants to do administrative work, and she brought the whole completely different level to the practice. I mean, it's things change and things mutate, and you have to be able to dance with that, you know. So yes, you have to resist the temptation of trying to be the rock star. But like we were saying, you have to get that inside your head in the beginning, because even unconsciously, the way that you treat people and the way that you treat patients, the way that you treat staff, you are. It's of course that in the first year you have a different attitude than in the following years, because you are a more confident person. Of course, you don't have so much financial pressure, but um, you still have to treat them in a way that is compatible with the evolution that you will know that will occur in the long term. So it needs to make sense. It needs to be congruent. So you have to be congruent now and in the future, or at least try to. And the same thing applies with the patients. You have to be congruent with them. You cannot be irresponsible with them. It's like, I'm going to give you this sweet. I am such a sweet dentist. I'm such a caring and sweet dentist in the first year, because I only see 3 patients a day and I'm just amazing. But then you know that in the future you'll not be able to be like this. And you also know that people are not exactly like you. So make sure that you treat the patient responsibly, not to create expectations that you know it will be impossible to be fulfilled by other team members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find very important that I make notes here, and when we start talking in the beginning about that you should develop certain skills when you think about opening a practice. I think that for me, one of the most important things is that you should really get to know yourself, because if you are aware of your if you have to be aware of your weaknesses and your strengths, it will make your life much easier, right? Because, like you said, you will have to delegate. If you are aware of your weaknesses, then it's much easier to start delegating according to that. And also, another very important thing is about boundaries, because you really, if you are thinking about opening a practice, you really need to be very assertive with your boundaries. You will have to say a lot of no's, and you will have to really draw certain lines and to be really assertive, not aggressive, but assertive, and to stick with it. And for certain persons, this is very for them to
Difficult.
say no. Yeah, it's very difficult. It goes to that kind of dentist that it's some of them maybe don't
People
want to be rock
pleaser.
stars, but they are people pleasers. There are dentists also that are people pleasers, and that it's very difficult to say no. And if you open a practice and you are not able to sustain certain boundaries, if you are not able to say no, if you are not self-aware of your weaknesses, and you don't work on that, then you're going to have a lot of suffering also. So also, let me just add that together with developing certain skills of management, leadership, communication, like we said, self-awareness, and to be really aware of your weaknesses and strengths, it's very, very, very important, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of suffering in relationships, and it can lead you to what you were saying, right? To what you were saying, to not being able to be assertive with your communication. And you are sometimes I see this very often. I see colleagues that they do it out of goodness, in order to help people, and they think that they are helping, but then they are tired, they are exhausted, they feel that people don't appreciate their work. And they cannot change that way of acting, and again they start to not be authentic, because even when they are saying yes, they really don't want to say yes, they want to say no. And that's like you said, even in conscience you feel that on your energy, the energy that you give to people. So I think that this self-awareness of your weakness, of your strengths, even for you to be able to work on your weaknesses, and even for you to be able to delegate certain parts of the work that you feel that you are not good on doing it, it's very, very, very important. And what I see is dentists continuing to invest in their technical skills, technical skills, and in beautiful practices, and they don't invest in the part of really personal development, on mental strength, and how to be really assertive, how to really define this vision of what they want, of their goals, in order for their communication to match those goals, and their behavior to match those goals. So I think this is very, 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 very important. How was it for you? You were very assertive from the beginning. Was it easy for you to have boundaries from the beginning?
I was very assertive in the things that I would have an interest on. For example, if I was doing a case that I want to take good photographs, the patient would not leave the chair before I had those pictures. That's because that was the reason, like I said, why I opened the practice. But was I assertive with my dental staff? I think I was I was excessively assertive because I came from a background of my father owned a restaurant, and he still owns a restaurant, and it's a very conservative and traditional way of leadership based on micromanagement, and this is what I did. So I think that I excessively imposed in the beginning my will, let's say it. But I emotionally I was very mature at that time,
And
the
when
reason
when
why
did you
looking
learn
back,
that you when did you learn
yeah,
to
yeah,
allow people to influence you? You know, because I think that you do this
yeah,
beautiful dance that you influence and you let yourself be influenced by others. When did you discover that?
yeah. Well,
When did you
sometimes
start
I
it?
step, sometimes I step on their feet while I dance with them too
And
much,
then they
but
step on yours for sure.
they step on mine. But I think that while we were talking, I was thinking about uh, number one, would it be possible for me to be emotionally more developed at that time if I had taken some courses? That's number one. And number two, like you're saying, when did I develop that? Well, the second question is I developed that when I met Alok in London because he introduced me to the whole new world of self-development, marketing, sales, management, leadership, meditation, communication skills. And it was very difficult for me in the beginning because it was a completely new world. In 2005, self-development was, people would mock on that,
Hmm.
What is that? What is that? I mean, in the UK, in the US, it was very different, but in Portugal, we were still very, very way back, very, very, it was,
Hmm. I remember when I
there were not
started going
even
to
books on that.
retreats. I remember when I started
Yeah, there
going
were
to
not even books
retreats.
on that.
Um, I didn't set anything in the practice. I was still working in Portugal when I started going to retreats, and
Yes, because you,
I didn't set anyone
you
because yeah,
they
people
would
think
call
I was
you they
afraid.
would call you
Yeah,
crazy. Yes,
yeah,
maybe you were like in this you were opening a
a
group
cult or
of doing
something. Yeah.
a cult or something. Yeah, yeah, that's it. So at that time it was very difficult for me, and I think things have changed a lot. um, but looking, okay, let's imagine myself with 20 years out of the college now. What would I do? uh, Yes, I think that I would be. I think that it would save me much more drama if I had taken some self development courses in leadership, in consciousness, and you have to realize that I already had some notion of that because I remember when I was 20, which is 4 years before I finished my course. Amazon, the website started to was just appearing, or it was in the first years. And I remember the first book that I bought from Amazon was called The Tibetan Yogas of Dream and Sleep. And I don't know why I bought that book, but it was basically about yoga and meditation and the practice of focused concentration and open awareness. And I read that during an interrail that I did on the when I was 20 or something. So I was already in an unconscious way looking for something more than what was evident. I knew that there was something more that would make me happier besides the mundane, let's say it. But when I opened the practice, I didn't connect those two.
Hmm.
There was a big disconnection between myself on vacation and the way that I want to live my personal life and my professional life. I just
Hmm.
wanted to make money because I wanted things to work out and then just use that money to be happy. Let's say I didn't have this connection. I didn't connect the dots. Now looking back, I think that was a mistake, and I think that would be probably the biggest advantage if I started today is that I will start to connect the dots earlier because the amount of available information is completely different. And I am sure that I would be curious about doing some courses and reading some books. And when we say about taking courses, we are also saying about reading books. Because when you start to read about the subject, slowly, you start to incorporate some notions of that. So it would have made a big difference at that time if I could have some help regarding to better know myself and to better know how to relate myself to other people. It would make a big difference. I am 100% sure of that. That would be really, really a big advantage, which I didn't have at the time. And I had to learn this, I would say, the hard way. But I was very fortunate to, after 3 years of opening my practice, to start doing some changes. But even still, the 3 years that we were open, they had consequences in terms of, because I treated the patients in a certain way, and then I started to slowly treat them in a different way, more into an interdisciplinary way. Even though I started to do systems, which is something that I think it's also important when you talk about people, they don't know how to say no. I think the biggest advice is to start writing the systems of your practice from scratch. How do people answer the phone? What's the tone of voice that people use in the practice? How do you talk to a patient? The importance of the initial examination, the do's and don'ts of the way that the staff treats each other, even if it is doctors and nurses. You have to be really, really specific on that. You have to be able to show the people that start to work with you that there are systems and that there are rules. And again, they should be created by the whole team, and there should be regular meetings. And I think that will drop a lot of drama. If you don't have a system in your practice, if you open your practice without any sort of system, and by system I mean written rules, written strategic goals, and operating principles and procedures step by step. If you don't have that, I mean, this is really the basic, but we talk about that all the time, and that will help a lot of people that don't have that. Confidence to say no, or there are more people pleasers, which we all are in the beginning of our career. We all are. And thinking about that, I was when you open a practice for 10 years and you don't have all these issues, when you don't consider them, what I see is that sometimes people are in a not very happy place, and we know that. Both me and you, we know, because we deal with a lot of people that have practices, and sometimes it's not easy to undo the mistakes, because when you don't take into a consideration that you should learn to develop leadership skills, implement systems, set boundaries, work as a team, and you let that go on for a decade, it's not easy to go back. I mean, it's more difficult, because even your head, it's difficult to unmantle, it's difficult to decode your head, because there are so many things that you take for granted. And then sometimes we talk to them in the question, say, look at this. This is the mistake that you have done. And they look at us and say, well, these guys are absolutely right. But I have allowed this person in the staff or a doctor to behave this way for 10 years. How the fuck am I going to unmantle this? Which sort of conversation will I have to do to be able to undo all these things? Because I know it's not the best thing to do. And you may find yourself in that situation, that is not a good situation to be in. And unfortunately, we know a lot of people that are in those situations that have allowed things that, even though they knew it was wrong, they allow them to go on because they just want to please people. And at the end of the day, we are all people pleasers in a sense, right? But if you allow that thing to go on for so much, it's very difficult to go to a staff member and say, look, I know you had this habit of gossiping, or you have this habit of talking loud, or you have this habit of sometimes making a bad face, or like just doing this sort of expressions with a patient like you are bored. But we should change that. And that conversation is difficult, especially if you allow that to happen for 10 years, So I always say this, it is always better to stay red for 1 minute than to stay yellow for 10 years. So it's always better to have that hard conversation, even if your legs tremble, even if your voice stumbles, even if you if you don't feel confident, it's always better to have that conversation. So this is why, and going back to your first question, which is, I feel very happy when people tell me they are going to open a practice, because when you open a practice, you have the unique opportunity that you will never have to create a microcosmos where things can eventually, where you will have fun. Mm-hmm. It's like you will never have the same opportunity again if you don't do some things in the beginning. You have this amazing opportunity, and it's like if you want to go in a direction, sometimes 1 degree to the left, in 10 years, you are in a completely different direction. And this is why I get so enthusiastic, because I just want to tell them, look, sit down here with me and let's have a talk. There's so much things that I want to talk to you about, because you are about to embark in the most amazing adventure in your life. Just sit down here, let's have a drink, let's talk about that. Of course, I think to myself, but I cannot do that for everyone. But that is, if I like the person, that's usually what I try to do. But it takes time, it should be structured, of course.
Yes, I think that what you said, you summed it very, very well. It needs structure. So when it's much easier to open something from the beginning, trying to change things when you have a practice already for many years, it's difficult. It's not impossible, but it needs really small steps. And you need to start building this vision, and you need to start matching your behavior first. So again, start with personal development, because sometimes the behavior that you see in others, it's because it's a mirror of you. So you do it yourself. And that's very confronting. It's very confronting. So small steps, invest in yourself, invest in your personal development, start building a system, start building protocols. I say it very often, you have the protocols to the clinical procedures. You should have protocols for everything else on your practice. Start small. But when you are starting from scratch, then you have this beautiful opportunity to really start with your vision. Really, you can really start with your vision. You can work on your values, and it's much easier for you in the beginning, if you see something, to correct it and to have that opportunity to put it in the manual, like you said, in the system. So you build your manual based on what you see. So you're going to grow your manual in a very organic way. I mean, you teach how to do that in a beautiful way. But it's much easier for things to work, to start working from the beginning, like that. Because if you already have something, and with staff working already for a long time, and it's definitely more difficult. It's much more difficult. So I think that this is very important. What you said, structure, really structure, but not only the technical and the financial part. That's very important, of course. It should be very well supported. You should really build a nice foundation for what you are building, but also on yourself. Really invest on your personal development. For you to be able to achieve that congruency that you were talking about earlier, you really need to give the example. You really need to set the example. So just the example that you were saying about gossiping, you should be the first one not to gossip. You should be the first one not to roll your eyes to certain patients, right? So that you don't give the example, so that your staff don't start to objectify patients, because we see that a lot. So it's much easier if because and also the systems and the protocols, which in the beginning, and for the ones that are not used to it, seem that they are very strict or boring. It's quite the opposite. It saves a lot of energy, and it really drops the drama, because people like to be guided. People like to know what they have to do. And if it's very clear, then it will give space and time for all the fun parts, for the creativity, for the laughing, for the good environment for the relaxation that you were talking earlier also. So and I just want to say this because I never this is also something that I never get tired of saying. You are very generous. You give all your information. You give all this templates. You give all the system that you have on your practice. You teach this. With such a kind and open heart. So if you are listening to us and you are thinking about opening a practice, really come to our course. It's going to be 3 very rich days of learning. It will be 3 intense days, but you will leave with this much clearer vision of what you want and how you can actually do it in a practical way. And just like you said in the beginning, the course is very interesting because it's not only about the information, but then the outside of the room, so the lunch and the contact that we have, and it's really always a good a healthy brainstorm, and it's you really guide for, especially for this kind of colleagues that really are starting a new practice. I think it's so useful, and it's really it's really a mark, on our, it's a turning point. If you have this information, and if you don't have this information, it's, you can go in completely different directions. And if you have this information, you will be much more prepared. You will have that structure. You will be more prepared for that foundation, not only systems, protocols, and all of that, but also on the part of the personal development, which is so important. The communication, the emotional intelligence. So I think that that the course is really useful for
Yeah,
that. Andre,
yeah, for
more
sure.
things you need to know if you're thinking about opening a practice. Something else that you want to share?
Um, I think that we haven't we've covered very interesting things. I guess I completely agree with you. I think the core. I would love to have done a course like the thing that we are presenting to the students on the it's gonna be the 3rd or 4th edition already. So it really is honestly something that I would be thrilled if someone would present me those 3 days 20 years ago. I think I would have something to think about over the next 20 years of my
Yeah.
life and to develop. Um, but things that we haven't talked, the marketing, right? We haven't talked, and I think that social media is really key today. You have to be in social
We should
media,
do an
right?
episode just about marketing
Yeah,
maybe we
yeah.
can invite someone, because I don't know much
Someone,
about
yeah, for sure.
marketing.
Yeah, neither do I. And I don't think
But
it's the most
nowadays it's
important thing.
crucial, huh? But yeah,
Yeah,
but
I don't
nowadays
think it is
it's
the most, but
yeah.
it is
Mhm.
very important. In
Mhm.
the way that you
Mhm.
market
Mhm.
yourself or the
Mhm.
practice, or and I mean, there's a whole new world regarding that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, I think that it's a good way to wrap this up and
Mhm.
to yes, the
Do you
course
think
is it's really something
let
that can be helpful for someone that's thinking about opening a practice.
Mhm. Let me just make you this question about social media. Do you think that the new generations of dentists, they are already wired for that, so it's much easier
Yeah,
for
for
them, I
sure.
think, right?
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
They have some of them, they do it themselves. Some of them hire some specialized teams. But I see a lot of practices that are already wired. I think that most of them, they are. And I don't think that many people are still aware of the importance of that. I think because you still have free publicity on social media. And I don't think that in 10 years things will be the same.
Mhm.
I think that you have to take advantage of the things as they are. You have to be creative. You have to, either from a personal perspective or from corporate or in terms of the business perspective, but you have to go all in on social media. You have
Mhm.
to go all in. And what I mean all in is, it's not like post every single hour, every single day, but you have to make a crucial part of the marketing, the social media. You have to really go all in, and you have to be really aware of the kind of image that you have to pass. For example, I'm not the best person to talk about social media. I mean, I am present, and I got known within dentists because of social media. But I'm one of those guys. I'm an old school guy in terms that I think that my best
You don't have
marketing
a
is the way that I
strategy.
treat
That's what
people
you are
outside.
saying.
No,
You don't have
yes,
a.
and it's not only that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a catch here that sometimes people, and I think that's a big mistake. I see, I see a lot of people trying to be or showing that they are interesting or charismatic or attractive or competent or whatever they want to show on social media. But then I get to meet them, and it's this huge disappointment. And I think there's nothing worse than that. I mean, it's
like
you have to be real. I mean, you cannot. And
you have
you cannot show this persona on social media, and then you're just an asshole in real life. What? Even recently, I was telling,
So you're
and
not going
I'm
to
not
say
going to
that you are
place any
an
inconfidence
asshole.
here. Sometimes I am an asshole, of course, but I was seeing this person talking about management and management of dental practices. And I know that is every single time delaying payments for dentists up to a point that they have to threaten him to stop working. I mean, how can you give courses on social media if you don't pay your people on time? How can you give courses about management if you don't pay people on time?
But that has to
For
do
me, it's
what
like
you were saying about
that is just
authenticity,
that,
and
no,
I mean,
but I think this is the trap of social media. It has never been easy, and it's very tempting. I mean, and when we all fall into this trap, we all fall into this trap, and I think that we have to have a conscious. And I do that sometimes. Not saying that I don't do. Sometimes I put
we
myself.
all do.
I paint myself in a much more colorful way than what I am. I think we all do that. But I think we have to have limits. I think that we have to be congruent. It has to make sense. I mean, I cannot say things on this podcast. At least I try not to say things on this podcast. I try to be aware of that are not true, that I don't actively pursue in my real life. So this is why it's so important to talk about the mistakes, because half of the things that I do are probably not right. So you have to talk about them. I think that when you paint yourself in this beautiful picture that everything is perfect, book your appointment, we create smiles, we are the best, we are this. I think this is just dangerous, and it creates this difference that it will eventually lead you to a mental place where you are not happy because you develop this persona for social media, and then in real life you are not this persona, or you try to, and then you have to live up to that persona. So I think that for me, and maybe I'm old school, maybe I am wrong about what I'm saying, but I think you have to be real on social media. That's what I think. I think you have to be real about the good thing and the bad things. So, and if you are not that good, don't say that you are that good. Say that you are learning, right? So there are many ways that you can market yourself without being an asshole or without being a liar. That's what I think. And for me, this doesn't make sense. The thing that we are the best, or we are the best practice in Portugal. We were the pioneers of this technique. Well, it's wrong. When it's. I mean, you have to be. You can play a fair game. You don't have to be a liar. You don't, and because lying, and you may say, well, because lying is not ethically correct. Of course, that is one of the reasons. But there's a deeper reason that you should avoid painting yourself in a color that you're not. And that deeper reason is that will come after you mentally and emotionally. If you present yourself in a way that you are not, trust me, sooner or later you will suffer the consequences in a bad way. You'll be exposed, or you will be depressed, or you will feel that you are not yourself. And so, yes, both of us, we are not experts in marketing, and I might be wrong, but I think you need to be congruent with who you are. You cannot show yourself in the person that you are not, or tell lies on social media. That's what I think. So walk your talk, let's say it, or try to.
Yes, I totally agree, and I think that it's never, like you said, it's never been easier for you to build this persona that
Of course.
that and then it takes a lot of energy of
And
you of you maintaining it.
even
It's
and for me, and this is now this is me overreacting to some stuff that I see. When I see poses on social media, and I do it sometimes, right? When we see
I mean,
poses,
we all do. I mean, we it's like
but it's like,
I also put
you,
like the good things. I never put
of course,
the bad things that
and
happen.
I'm not removing myself from that cartoon, but look at the cartoons that sometimes we do. And I see a lot of, and I can see immediately when there's an outside company doing their social media, they all tell you should ask questions to the audience. And I see things like, well, we are on the break, we are on the coffee break. I go outside, I get some sun. Oh, summer is coming. Oh, what do you do on summer? And I was like, what the fuck is this? I mean, how stupid is it? Who believes in this shit? Isn't it?
But the thing is that
Who is
what
stupid enough? So, but who made these rules? Who was the
yeah.
idiot that started with these rules? Because I think that only idiots can be attracted to this sort of stupidity. But maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But I was like, who the fuck created these rules that you have to make questions and you have to look at the sky and place your Rolex and place your tie and get your. I mean, at least for me, I think that there's no one in their common sense that looks at that and that says, this is a complete fake post. It's completely fake. There's nothing truth. There's nothing slightly true about this. So how can you go on? Who are the companies that still advise these people to do these things? For me, I just can't understand it. But
I think that
maybe I am wrong.
also, no, I think you're totally right. And I think that dentistry is a special, is a special field. And sometimes those companies are general and they are used to work with, I don't know, hairdressers or clothes
Maybe,
shops or
yeah,
something.
yes,
And
yeah, yeah.
it needs, dentistry needs someone that really understands dentistry. It cannot be an outsider. Do you understand what I'm saying? And if you completely
I think
lose
that might be a reason, yeah.
if you
But I mean,
completely
but
lose
then this,
control of your management of
yeah,
your social media and just do
but at the end of
what
the
they
day,
tell you, then you completely lose your soul. It's like you
of
don't
course, yeah,
have
but
this it's
exactly.
this
But
account and they have no soul. Yeah.
at the end of the day, I mean, would you allow that some company uses our image to say this completely childish and ridiculous stuff? I mean, at least that's what I think for me,
Then yeah, of
isn't it?
course, but you are totally right. But you have to be able to say yeah. To maybe they
I
think that it looks good. Sometimes it's all about the pictures, all about the images, and they don't care about the
yes,
text. And it's
yes,
like
yes.
it's just this
Well, one thing is
facade
true.
world. Yeah.
One thing is true. If you are a girl and if you want to have more followers, just show your ass and your tits, and you'll have more followers. That's the reality, isn't it? So yes, if you go through that strategy, so you can even do that the same, and it's fine and it's legitimate. I understand that if you are like that. So I don't think that you can expect to attract certain types of patients if you do that sort of marketing. So you cannot have other expectations. I mean,
Yeah.
if that is the way you market, just accept that you will have patients that are idiots. That's the reality, isn't it? So you go, oh, all my patients are idiots. They don't want to spend money. Why? Because your market is based on your tits. So who else would you attract?
But look,
That's what I think.
that goes back to what we are saying about having a vision and about
And
knowing
I
yourself
think,
and building, because the marketing also should be built
of course,
on that vision.
and I think, and that's very interesting. That's why I will, and I look forward to an episode on marketing, because I think that people don't talk about these things openly. I think people, because everybody sells themselves in different ways, people are not willing to talk about the elephant in the room. And there's this huge elephant in the room in dentistry, which is the low level of marketing, the sometimes ridiculous marketing that is done, and that people expect that the patients somehow, for magical reasons, are patients that are intelligent and have money to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Patients that are intelligent and have money to spend, I don't think that's what I believe, or the patients that you want to have in your practice that are collaborative, that understand things. I don't think that will be attractive to a marketing that has nothing to do with them, or that is fake, completely fake. Maybe I am wrong, but I think there's this discussion that needs to happen. I think there's something wrong with the way that people do marketing.
There's still a big void in dentistry, because I think you still have the two kinds of accounts. So one is very technical, and you just open the accounts and you see just clinical cases, and then there's the opposite, where you go to that accounts with shallow and with no content or something. So I think that in dentistry, real accounts, they exist, but they are hard to find.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think that good marketing or decent marketing or ethical marketing only needs to be about clinical cases. I don't think that.
It doesn't need. You can integrate yourself. You can be authentic. You can educate
and you can show
your patients
yourself,
also,
and you can show who you are. My point is that when you are showing someone that you are not, that is my point. My point is this: that you go to the gym for someone to take pictures while you never go to the gym. I mean, you are not a sports guy, and you go to the gym just to have a couple of pictures, just to try to convince someone that you are this sporty, highly disciplined guy that does sports every day. I mean, that's fake. You are not that person. Or that you go and have a coffee in a given restaurant just because you want to be seen in that restaurant with that certain watch or whatever. So that is my point. I think that you have to be real. That's what I think. I think that you can show your personal part, because I understand. I think I overcame that. I think that's not only technical information. You have to show who you are, because at the end of the day, people also search for who you are as a person. So there's nothing wrong with that. The thing is that trying to get people inside your practice based on someone that you are not, and that will fall on top of you. You will eventually feel that. That's what I think. And also, I think there are some interesting studies regarding what's the real impact of social media. No, I'm not talking about Google ads that people actively search for a treatment, but the social media impact on dental practices. If it's not very directed, the impact is it's actually very low. If it's not directed, if it is directed, if it is like paid advertising specific for patients for treatments, that's one thing. But that thing of you having a coffee and showing the Rolex and showing the Armani shoes or whatever, I think that's completely pathetic in my personal point of view. But who am I to classify that? I'm just saying this as a warning sign, because it's very important that you reach your 30s, 40s, and 50s being proud of the image that you have in your practice. And being proud means being real. This and I think that if you are not real, it's very difficult to be. It is difficult to be happy if you are real, and it's much more difficult to be happy if you are not real with yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I usually say that a lot to the dentists that I work with, that part of the secret is for them to be able to be real with their patients, to show their real selves, and that's possible. Because a lot of colleagues, they start working with this mask. We already talked about that, and they develop this mask, and then there's another patient coming, and when the patient comes in, they have to a new one, and they have to smile. But it's interesting that you said exactly the same thing, but for social media.
How about talking about mistakes? Talking about the things that went wrong. well, we do this, but we did all the mistakes to get here. And sometimes things go wrong. This is not perfect because of this and this and this. Why not talk about that? I mean, because medicine at the end of the day is something that you have compromises, you have mistakes. I'm not saying that you should market based on your mistakes, but just be real for once in a
There's
while,
this,
just say that everything is not perfect.
talking about social media, I remember I did when I started I thought to myself, okay, I have to build an Instagram account, but I need to know how to work things. And I did an Instagram course, a mentorship with a few years ago. And there was this notion that really bothered me, and that they kept on saying it over and over, which is to position yourself as an authority, So I think that when you take that to that level, then you start to do, and you start to do exactly what you said. You lose completely self-awareness, and you start to do just like the shallow photo on the restaurant, and with this brand and this and that, because you want to be seen as authority, and it's like no one can question your authority. So and it's not only for your patients, it's for your colleagues, and maybe you are selling a course, and maybe this, and maybe and so it gets to this place where I think also you sometimes are not surrounded by people that really pull you to the ground and say, hey,
to the right places.
maybe
yeah, maybe it's that.
Okay.
But it's something that fascinates me, because I think there's so many rules that people live by in marketing that I think that are a complete bullshit.
Yeah. Well, when I did this course,
who was the guy that invented this stupidity that you have to do a certain pose and ask questions? Who was the guy? Bring me the guy. I want to talk to him. I just think that we have these rules that I don't have no idea who invented them. And I think that they can give you more in dentistry, especially in healthcare. I understand that especially, but in healthcare, they can bring you more issues than actually advantages. That's what I think.
Okay, so thank you so much for this conversation.
That was a nice podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes. And really, if you're thinking about opening a practice, if you really feel driven and motivated, just go for it. And if you need some help, we are here to help you. Come and to us in Sagres. The next edition will be in October.
By the way, we and many other people, we have our course, but we are not the best in the world. There's many other people that are very good and learn from many people. Okay, are not.
And doesn't have to. It's just, you said that yourself. It does not have to be a course. You can read books. You can, of course, you can read books. You can listen to podcasts. There are a lot of information on podcasts nowadays. You can just open your mind, and really see, open yourself to information, or give yourself the opportunity to really grow your mind and really to be creative. Because I think that what you said in the beginning is so important. It's to open a practice is a possibility of expressing your creativity. So don't shut yourself. Really open yourself and read books, listen to podcasts, talk to people, go to a retreat, do something that takes you out a little bit of your daily routine, so that you can really have and to know yourself better, and to develop yourself in a different way. So thank you so much, Andre. And I'm going. Nice, we have to prepare that one about marketing. I think that's that. But maybe we should invite someone.
We have to invite someone because as you said, I'm a complete moron in marketing. So you should not let me talk too much about marketing, because actually there's one guy called Bill Hicks, and he says that marketeers ruin the world. And honestly, if I had to say if I agree or not with that sentence, I would say that I agree with that. So I'm not the best guy. I'm not the best guy to talk about marketing, so don't give me too much time talking in that, because I will probably not
No, but
say very
it's I
nice
think
things.
it's very important nowadays. It's crucial. And if you can do it in an authentic way, if
Absolutely,
you could be an
absolutely,
expression also of yourself,
absolutely.
I
Because
think,
dentistry is, at the end of the day, is an healthcare profession, and
mhm,
when you treat people in terms of health, different things are on the table. This is
mhm,
why you need to be responsible. This is why you have informed consents. This is why things can go wrong. So healthcare is not the same thing as cosmetics, and I think you have to be careful with them. And you have to.
mhm,
This is my main concern.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
but
mhm.
yeah, we have to invite
Okay,
someone to talk about marketing.
let's think about that. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for
Thank you,
everyone that is
Manuela.
listening to us. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye. Bye, Andre. Bye.
Bye bye.